Welcome to the IP2 podcast. I'm Shea Ashby, and as always, I'm joined by Felix Chung. Felix, how are you tonight?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. I'm wondering how you are, though. Have you caught up on all your sleep after Battle Hard in Vancouver?
I'm not sure. I felt pretty good yesterday, but today I'm really tired.
Mm,
I also took Monday off, not with really any intention other than having an extra day on the weekend.
yeah.
But it turned out to be the most brilliant idea I had all weekend because I spent most of Monday sleeping.
Yeah, those big events really take a lot out of you. And without further ado, I'd like to just hop right into that. You got the chance to go to Battle Hard in Vancouver. I was stranded on the other side of the country, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
because, my work project is the gift that keeps on giving, but that's okay. Tell me about how everything started for you.
We flew out on Friday.
Yep.
There was a super armory on the Friday. It was draft bright lights. There was
Okay.
24 slots available, and I think we ended up having 22 people. We almost had 23, but one of the guys went to the wrong venue,
Mm.
so we ended up with 22. So 2 pods of 8 and a pod of 6. I myself was in the pod of 6, and weirdly enough, this was my first time drafting bright lights. I have not
I
drafted the
see.
set since it came out.
You need to come to the same armory events as I do. We do drafts.
I know. I only go to, I guess, constructed type events.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had, who did we? Yeah, a few locals, a few people from a couple Calgary people, and there was also some Americans there. There was a couple guys from Portland
Cool.
at the Super Armory, so that was super cool. I went 0-3 or 1-2, 1-2, I think. Arthur was playing in the 2-0 match against Max and almost won himself a first edition box of Monarch, but
Mm.
Max took it down. And some of the other pods were like Yuki, who we've had on, and Eric, who we've had on. They each won
Yep.
their respective pod in the draft. So it was fun. It was a good time. It was held at Magic Stronghold's game store in Burnaby. The store is huge.
Mm.
We walked in, it was filled with people. There's probably 8 rows. It probably holds 50, 60 people, and they had to make space for us. And
Okay.
they finished up, I think, a Friday Night Magic event, and while we were in the middle of our draft, they ran another one, and our event started at 7:30, and so
Mm.
they were starting another Magic draft at 8 or 8:30 or something like that. It was crazy. I couldn't believe how busy the store was. It was super cool to see and being in the environment. So that was a lot of fun. So that was pretty much the Friday. Saturday was the Battle Hardened, Vancouver. There was 72 participants.
That's pretty decent. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we were hoping, but I think somewhere in the 60 to 80 range was like mine and yours and Eric's sort of wish, I think. I don't know. Do you remember what you kind of were hoping for a number?
No, I'd have to go back and re-listen to the episode with Eric, but that's pretty good turnout for Vancouver. It's on one side of the the country and not the most populated one, and
Yeah.
sounded like there were people traveling up from the USA and people from Alberta. So yeah,
Yep.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't too many people from Ontario. Just two maybe,
Sure.
I think. And then the rest was obviously local people, and then we had a contingent of 9 people from Alberta, I think. And then a few
Mhm.
people that I talked to throughout the day came up from um, the states. There was one guy that came from quite far away, I think, Virginia. Yeah,
Mm,
so he had some friends over in Portland or something like that. So kind
that's
of used
cool.
it as an excuse to fly, see his friend, and then come up and play in a Battle Harden, which was
That's
really
very
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
How did the event go? How did it start out?
The event was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It it actually had more of, in a weird way, kind of had a more of a casual feel, but that might have been because of my mindset that I wasn't in there hyper competitively trying to top 8 or win the event or anything like that, purely because of my hero choice. Um, I picked Riptide.
Yes, predictably, Riptide.
So, um, I had just played him, done well in the PQ the week prior, and I kind of didn't have anything that I was comfortable with playing, so I just kind of went with it. And so my mindset was, this could be bad or this could be good. I'm just gonna have a good time and have some fun. So, round one, essentially, I get paired into friendly fire. I got paired into Lance from Nova Scotia.
Yep.
He was on Bolton, and I was playing Riptide. And the game was going really well. Like, he took a turn where he went down to 2, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a really dangerous move, homie. Playing Riptide, you could die right now." And he ended up presenting 28 damage, which I could not live through nor kill him.
Yikes. Yep.
0-1 after round 1. So I was like, well, I guess that's how the day's going to go, I guess. Yeah, it's round 2. I got paired into Levia. So I was actually, at this point, already super excited that my first 2 rounds were off meta heroes. So I thought
Yep.
that was really cool. And don't get to play into Levia that much. And that game was very back and forth. For a lot of the match, he turned into Blasphemous. He had, I don't know, he was taking like 6 blood debt, and he was at 16, and he went down to 13, and then turned into Blasphemous. And I was just able to pressure his hand to a couple of turns in a row where he was just eating his deck, like five
Yep.
cards a turn plus drawing 4 cards. I forgot about the drawing 4 cards when I saw him like banish 5. I'm like, okay, he's still got a little bit of ways to go. But then when he drew 4 more cards, I was like, wow, that's gonna chew through his deck really fast.
Oh yeah.
And he kind of basically ended up running out of cards. I do kind of want to preface that, like, Riptide, or the version of Riptide that I was playing, semi-fatigue, but also has the power to like apply pressure and fatigue through attacks and not just defending. So sometimes at the beginning of games or at the end of the games, I could actually apply fatigue pressure by attacking, which felt really good. So yeah, so I won that. So I won 1 after 2 rounds. The third round, I get paired into another Bolton. So again, super happy off meta. I'm not fighting wizards. I'm not fighting Dromai, which are pretty much auto losses.
Mm-hmm.
That one went quite well in my favor. There was nothing really stand out in that match. And then round 4 was into a fatigue dash. And I knew
Like
he was
pistol, tree
like,
frog dash.
not tree frog pistol, yes, but he
Yep.
didn't have like life gain and anything ridiculous like that. He was blocking, had unmovables, 6
Yep.
fates, and right from turn 1 or 0, I forget who went first, he just went throttle for 6, no boost.
Yep.
And I immediately knew what this game was going to be. And it was basically pistol for 2 every turn.
Got
and
it.
he would block. So very slow, very grindy. I didn't pitch stack the way I wanted to pitch stack, I guess. I'm not very good
Yep.
at pitch stacking. It's hard. It's a very hard skill.
It is.
But there was definitely 2 card combos that I wanted to line up together that I just couldn't get to line up together. And when we got down to the end of the game, I had a decision to make. Also, because all my games went to fatigue, basically, I had my little posse of Alberta crew hanging out with me, watching my games that pretty much always went to time.
Yep.
That I had 2 cards in hand at the end of my turn. One of them was a trap, and one of them was an endless arrow. And at the end of the game, Adrian, he's like, "Why didn't you arsenal the trap?" And in the moment, I knew I was going to have to block with all of my cards to survive. And my opponent was getting very low on cards, like 4 cards left in deck. So my thought was that I block with 4 cards, and then I get to shoot the endless arrow for free. That way I get to pressure his hand. So he's only got 4 cards left. He's got to use 2 of them to block the endless arrow, or he dies. I forgot about Achilles' Accelerator, and he was able to attack me essentially 5 times in 1 turn. And so I was unable to block. And had I thought about an arsenal the D react, I would have been able to basically run him out of cards. So
Yeah.
lesson learned. And I think, again, somewhere in the game, I probably had room to also block with a card from hand, because he was just pistoling me for 2. Because I had not lots of cards left in deck, but I had enough cards left in deck that tells me that there was probably an opportunity to block somewhere and save life. So yeah, I lost that. It was a very close game. Again, went down to time. And then in round 5, I guess that was round 5. Was that round 5? The next round was, I played Alexi next, I think. My deck's very good into Lexi.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
when you get to play 2 frailty traps in a turn, it just shuts them down. It's so gross. We were halfway through the game, and he was playing his third 3 of a kind, and it clicked when he played it, and I was like, I think this is the third 3 of a kind. Go through his graveyard. Yep, he's already got 2 in his graveyard. I was like, wow, like I'm at like 18 health and you're on your third 3 of a kind. I'm like, this is going okay. This is going well.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so ended up again kind of winning through attrition. Like he got down to basically no cards in deck. I knew he had 1 Rain Razors left, and I figured it was in his hand.
Yep.
And so I blocked accordingly to not die. And then he played the Rain Razors, and I played the defense reaction, and that was basically it. He was out of cards at that point. So,
very nice. Yeah.
So it felt really good when in the moment I thought to check the graveyard and go through it. I know this sounds like basic level play for some people, but we're 5-6 hours into the day. All of my matches go 55 minutes because of it's just the way the deck works. So I was just very happy with myself when I realized that and played around it, because otherwise I could have lost the game for no reason. So it was cool.
One of the most satisfying things is identifying your opponent's win condition correctly and successfully mitigating it, causing your victory, which many of your games, it sounded like you successfully did so. And even in that game against Dash that you described where it didn't so much go in your favor, you were still applying that mentality, just forgetting about the Achilles accelerator, which I've done numerous times.
Yeah.
And I always learn the lesson and then forget. So that the way that you're describing this deck is very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's a very fun deck. Lots of dynamic lines and lots of decisions. Back to the mech game, I saw the Spike Pit Trap. Spike Pit Trap? Yeah, I saw the Spike Pit Trap really early. Before I identified, I think that he was... Maybe before I identified that he was going to be super fatigued. Anyways, I pitched it, which you should anyways. And when I saw it, I was like, this could kill him. Like, if I get a T-bone off the top of his deck, which I knew he had a blue one left, I could kill him here. He was at like 6 or something like that. And I got a throttle, which still did 5 damage, which is
nice.
So good. Like, there's so much value there of blocking 3 and doing 5 damage. I was like, okay, I'm like, we have a chance of winning
really
here.
Good.
Super good. Yeah. So then round 7, paired into an Azuri. And he was beside me earlier in the day, and he was helping teach a new guy about Azuri and how to identify what the Azuri is. And I flat out heard him say, he's like, I'm fatigue Azuri, so my job is to literally run you out of cards. And I was like, cool. So we sat down, we get paired up, and like, boom, 72 cards, 74 cards in the deck.
Yep.
Because I knew what his game plan was. And we drew. Long story short, we drew. There was a very critical mistake, it turns out, in the middle of the game where... Oh, actually, sorry. I missed round 6. We'll go back to round 6. Where I tried to be cheeky, like fancy for no reason, and it cost me 2 to 4 points of value. So Lexis are familiar with loading pitching to load a bow with a resource card and then not loading an arrow and then playing Codex of Frailty. So you don't have to discard a card. You then have available pitch to grab an arrow with your Codex.
Yep.
And I used a red card to pitch to my bow and then played the Codex. Well, in Riptide, I can just play the Codex, load the card from my hand, let that load resolve, then use Trench before the Codex resolves, and get a free resource, which I know I've been doing it all day.
That's cool.
And so because of that play, I grabbed like a virulent touch instead of a death touch.
I see.
Which the difference in those 2 cards is huge. So I probably would have, if it hit, taken the damage aspect, because I knew damaging him was going to be a problem, or it would have given me another card. that
Right.
he wouldn't have had access to later in the game. So we go down to time. I finish. We finished. We ended up in a draw. If we had one more turn, there was actually a very interesting potential outcome for the game, and I want to talk about it just because it just kind of shows how cool this game can be at times. So the game's over, and it's his turn. So if he had one more turn, he could attack me with a dagger or whatever he wants, and he can flick knives and potentially kill me for the win, which is totally fine play. That's, I think, normal for a lot of Azuris. But I arsenaled a Crucible of War Trap the turn before. So the turn would look something like he attacks me with the dagger, and then if I'm thinking about the flick knives, I block with a card from hand. He flick knives, and in response to his flick knives, I get to play the Crucible of Trap, killing him before his flick knives kills me. I
Mm.
think, in all honesty, at the end of the day, I probably would have just tried to kill him with the Crucible of War Trap, and I would have just died the other way. Like, he would have got the flick knives over top of my Crucible Trap. But I thought it was a really cool interaction. That would have been a really neat way to end the game, a very, very fun and exciting way to end the game. So that was round 7. Going
Yep.
back to round 6, I think it was, I played a warrior. I played Dory, which was he flipped over Dawnblade, so I was worried that he was going to flip over Decimator Axe, which is a really bad and boring matchup. But he flipped over Dawnblade, so I knew he was going to be trying to attack me and do stuff. And it was a fun game, but this game like stands out to me for the day because I played very poorly. I made lots of mistakes and missed triggers, and it was causing my opponent some internal debates on how to handle this situation. And at one point in the game, he even said, you got to remember your triggers. You got to be doing this in proper order. I was like, okay, cool. That's fine. No problem. I understand. This is a big tournament. This means something. You're not wrong. He also wasn't at fault for his own gameplay either. So it was a mentally difficult match because there were bad plays on both sides of the table, and it didn't feel very good.
Mm.
Anyways, again, basically went to time again. I decked him. He had 2 energy potions, Heart of Findle, and I think like a glint in his hand at the end of the game, which I
Yeah.
could just present any damage and he dies. And that's what ended up happening. So I got the win there. So ultimately, I ended the day at a battle hardened with 72 people, 4 wins, 2 losses, and a draw on Riptide. So
I mean,
I don't think I can be upset at that.
it's a good record. It's I mean, I bet you were the top placing Riptide in that room. That's for sure.
I could have been anywhere and I would have been the top placing Riptide. So all day, everybody, I sit down, like I introduce myself and I say, what are you playing? And their opponent tells me what they're playing. And then they ask me the same question and I say Riptide. Just everybody around you is like, what, you're playing Riptide? That's so awesome. And it's really fun. Like, that's why the day was fun for me, was
Yep.
those side table interactions with other people. Like, I'm very much social a lot at the start of a game, like talking with the tables beside me, talking with my opponent, finding out where they're from, and just even announcing Riptide as my hero or hearing somebody say they're playing Levia just naturally made people talk and engage, and that was a
Yep.
lot of fun. And so that's why it kind of felt like also kind of felt casual for me, and it was a really enjoyable way to play throughout the day, I guess. And then the second most common line was, "I don't think I have a sideboard plan for you," which
No, I
also
bet you
feels
don't.
pretty good.
But that's great. And I mean, just going back to the way you described the event, because I mean, if I ask, let's say, a professional player, typically, hey, how was this battle hardened? One of the first things they'll hear is, oh, I got this place or this was my record. But, we just started having this conversation, and this isn't a pre-scripted conversation between you and I. We
No.
just hit record here, and you just immediately go into, this was my first game, this is how it was, this is the second. You're approaching it on a game-by-game basis, and your objective traveling to this event is to bring the deck that you love, to play some good games, to have fun, to take it one game at a time. I really respect that, and
Yeah.
that's a really great mentality to have into into this kind of event. And I guess while you were there, you were taking the place of what I would normally be, like head down, going to the 55th minute on every game. Like, did you
Yeah.
have a chance to track the rest of the squad and get excited or sad or anything
A
like
little
that?
bit, not really. I had
Yeah.
to get my information like third hand or
Yep.
second hand because like I said, all my games were going to time, and
Yep.
so everybody would hang around me.
Yep.
I also was like at the end of every row almost all the time, so it was very
Oh,
easy
okay.
for people to like stand on the corner of the table or
Yeah.
beside it and hang out and chit chat. I knew Travis was doing really well. I knew he was 3-0. I think Alex was also doing really well.
Yep.
And then kind of everybody else was like win, lose, win, lose, lose, win
Yep.
kind of deal.
Yep.
So I knew a couple of people were doing really well, and Andrew was doing really well as well, I think.
Okay.
So I got a little bit of updates. It was very hard to take it in though, because I'm de-sideboarding my deck. They're getting
Yeah,
ready to
it
announce the
is.
next round, and I'm trying to pack up. So I didn't get a lot of time to like really hang out with people after matches. We
Yep.
had a little bit of conversations like during matches, because
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't usually take a ton of time on my turns. And I don't know, Riptide puts people in weird positions, I guess,
Yep.
because they don't really know what to do. So I had a bit of time to have like small, brief conversations with people during my game, which I don't mind doing. Like I can
Sure.
step out of the match for a minute, which isn't maybe necessarily the best way to handle a competitive event, but that's what I do, and that's part of why it's fun for me.
Competitive REL, I guess. There's some
It is.
leeway.
It is.
Yeah. All right.
So
Did you have a chance to do any socializing with people outside of our community? I mean, Friday night, Saturday night, etc. I mean, that's another highlight of traveling.
yeah, got to hang out with Eric and Nia and Yuki a little bit on Friday at the
Nice.
Super Armory. Spent a few minutes with them, chit chatting. Like I hadn't seen Nia since first Canadian Nats.
Got it.
So it was nice. It was nice to catch up with him. And then on Saturday, again, not a lot of time for extra socialization. I'm trying to think what we did. It was mostly just the squad. Went out for dinner afterwards, and then Sunday was the PTI, so that was pretty long as well because it was a called draft. So,
Okay.
sorry, I'm slightly distracted because I have a cat all over me. I know people can't see that, but
It's all right.
uh,
We can
I'm trying to get him
appreciate the cat, taking up
not
half the screen here on Shay's webcam.
sit on my mouse or my keyboard and
Yeah.
having him stop something. So I think that was pretty much it for the Battle Hardened. Travis made. I do want to shout out Travis. He made top 8, which everybody here is super proud of, which is awesome for him. And then a semi-local guy, also Max, made top 8. He's somewhere between a BC and an Alberta player, so kudos to him as well. That represented Alberta as well. So it was super cool to watch them, see them perform well and do good. We're all pretty happy about that. I think Alberta in general did pretty good. We had Andrew finished 12th and I finished 18th. Alex was somewhere in there between. So I think we did all right, for our small, not hyper competitive region.
Yeah, we can still
Throw down.
still put up some results. Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah. I do want to acknowledge one thing. Gem was a blessing on Saturday for me. If I get paired into Wizards and Dromai on Saturday, I don't think my days is as fun.
Right.
They're basically unwinnable matchups. A lot of things have to go wrong for my opponent more than they have to go right for me for there to even be a chance. So the fact that I got paired into actual games was really enjoyable for me. So I do recognize that I probably got lucky there.
So we are going to highlight your deck in a deck tech, a first for our channel, coming up soon. So please look out for that. And I'm sure you'll be able to give a thorough description of, the good matchups, the bad, the strategy, the card choices. I'm really looking forward to making that with you, actually.
It should be interesting. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. I guess any closing thoughts on Battle Hardened Vancouver before we move on?
I didn't notice any like hyper aggressive judge calls throughout the day. So again, going back to that casual feeling, and it's not like that for everybody, but when we were at Worlds, there were some like aggressive judge yelling.
Yep.
And anytime there's a judge call here, it was loud, but it didn't sound like it was out from a place of anger and frustration. It was from like we need some clarification. So kudos to like all of the players that went to this battle hard and kept it like sounding reasonable. I didn't hear anybody fighting. The judges did a great job, very timely. Eric
Excellent.
and his team of Ross and Henry, they were super pleasant to talk to and have as our judges. So I want to thank them. They did an awesome job.
No, that's wonderful to hear, and shout out, yeah, to the TO and behind the scenes staff, including the judges. Sounds like
Yeah.
the event went off very well.
Yeah. So I guess Sunday, the PTI is the first draft PTI event, I think Eric was saying.
Yeah.
So I drafted on Friday, and then I guess we did do a little draft on Saturday after the top 8 started, just to get a little bit of practice. So now I'm going into my third ever draft, the PTI, on Sunday. And, I've been known to be a force pick player, I guess, in draft, which is bad. So I'm told. But I don't have time to learn all the ins and outs of the draft and read signals and whatever. So I force pick because I feel like that gives me a better chance to play. And usually just those cards stand out to me. Like when we were playing Uprising, I just played Icelander all the time because I know what the good Icelander cards are. I don't know, what the good cards are for Phi or for Jomai. So it's hard for me to get past a couple of picks that I feel lost. So
Sure.
I've been trying to be a little bit more open with my picks. And so in the first draft on Sunday, I grabbed a couple of Teklo cards, and then I saw a red hyperdriver go around twice. So I was like, nobody's on max. And so I pivoted to max. Turns out 3 people were on max, 3 people were on dash,
Oops.
and 2 people were on Teklo. And I should have just stayed on Teklo. But it felt like the Evo cards dried up and there were max cards floating around. But I guess mistakes were made. Nothing super exciting. I went 0-3 in the first draft.
Yep. It happens.
Yeah. So I talked to Andrew. We have some discussions about the draft. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to force Teklo. I'm just going to try it. I just want to get the cards in my hands and see how they feel. And so we had a mini strategy for the draft. I forced Teklo because everybody, I think, is in agreement that Teklo can be picked a fair bit. He's pretty strong across the board. So even if you end up forcing, it's probably not the end. And I 3-0'd. So, I mean, is there merit to it? I don't know. But I went 3-3 in the Bright Lights draft for the PTI.
This is a top tier draft strategy here on the IP2 podcast. Yeah.
As always, that's why people come here for competitive
That's right.
information. PTI itself, it was a called draft. Eric was sick that day, so he had
that sucks.
like 2 flu shots earlier in the week, and they were whooping his ass. So he was there on Saturday, but like on Sunday, when he eventually did show up later in the day, you couldn't even hear him talk. Like he was so quiet, yeah. He had no voice. So Ross and Henry had to run the PTI by themselves, which they did what they could. They got some support from the crowd. There were a couple of rough bumps, but at the end of the day, they trial by fire, and I think they did fine. It was just
Excellent.
a little slow, mostly because it was called. So it takes a long time to do a called draft. You were right. Like when we did my draft, PQ, you said don't do called, and you were spot on with that advice because it was.
However difficult you think a called draft it's like 4 times harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they did it. Like I'm not throwing shade at them. They did a very good job, but it's a slog.
It is.
So yeah, that was rough. So and Eric ended up showing it later in the night, but when it kind of didn't matter. But yeah, so they basically ran it with the 2 of them. There was a store owner there that was a level 2 judge that gave them some support as well. That helped out. He kind of stepped in Eric's place. So kudos to Ken for that. And then I guess the only thing about the Sunday PTI is that Andrew top 8'd the
Very nice.
draft PTI. So
Congratulations, Andrew.
good for Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only other thing that's of note, I think, is the same guy that won the Battle Hardened also won the PTI.
That's pretty unusual, but
Did you
good
hear
for him.
about the Swiss PTI hunter?
No, I did not.
I don't know where it came up in chat, but somebody's like, there's a guy here. He's like from Switzerland. He's like a PTI hunter. And I was like, what the fuck is a PTI hunter? Anyways, I got to talk to him in the washroom. Very nice fellow. He just doesn't want to work. He doesn't want to go to work. So he is trying to win prizes at FAB events and turn them into cash and keep doing it. And he said that, if this buys me 2 more weeks without having to go to work, then it's worth it. So I was like, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, best of luck. I mean, that's sounds like a difficult thing to do, but if you have the skills to back it up, that's pretty cool.
Well, I guess if you fly to an easy meta and then just take all of their prizes, it works, I guess.
Okay, I don't know why are we calling different places easy metas?
I'm calling Canada an easy meta.
Man.
One other funny thing is I messaged Eric because I was like, who won the PTI? And he's like, the same guy that won the Battle Hardened. And he said the perfect thing to me. He said, he came here and took all of our shit.
Yeah.
And then I responded, and I was like, now you know how it feels.
Eric just took the first one with the tunic playmat and the extended art tunic. Yeah. Just one, but it hurts, eh?
It does. It stings.
Could have been one of us.
Still fresh in our memory.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's funny. Wow.
So
all in all, good weekend, hey?
It was great. It was a lot of fun. It had aspects that weren't as fun as like Worlds, because like Worlds, we were staying in the same house together.
Yeah.
And we were going out for dinner and we were playtesting and having fun in that giant dining room with that huge table. This one was still fun. We still got to hang out with people, but everybody had their own hotel room. They were kind of splintering off at different times of the night. So still fun, but man, like if we do this again, I really hope we can get back into like the Airbnb house thing, because that's where it really shines for me on a personal level, is going with these people and creating those memories. And it's not just the memories at the event. It's actually mostly the memories outside of the event that matter to me.
No, completely agreed. I mean, I wish I could be there, but I keep on harassing you. Have to come to LA. That's
all I can do is say I'll try.
Yeah.
So I think I've been chatting enough a bit here. We're going to move on to the Calling Melbourne and other events potentially. Did you end up watching any of the Calling?
Yeah, and I was on the edge of my seat for so many of the matches, the Dash games, the Azuri games. I just, throughout that entire weekend when I could watch the games, all I could think is, man, I love Flesh and Blood. Like, what an amazing game we play and we're fans of. I mean, not to get into any specific details, but yeah, just the innovation, the cool plays that a lot of the newer breakout decks were capable of making, and how close many of the games were. I mean, how could you not be a huge fan of Flesh and Blood after seeing all that?
Yeah, it sounded like a really excellent event to watch. I think the last little bit, maybe some of the other events felt stagnant because people were just seeing the same heroes over and over, and we get tired of seeing the same thing all the time. In this event, they were really highlighting other matchups and matchups that mattered and that were exciting to watch. So that was really cool and quite enjoyable, like you already said.
Very good. Want to move on to our random topic for the day?
Sure. I chuckle because the random topic is primarily that I went through 3 years of my gem profile and tracked every person that I played against and whether I won, lost, or drew.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just like looking at numbers. Like I was telling you before, I don't really do much with them other than like, oh, I've lost a bunch to that person, or I beat that person a bunch, or, ooh, we're really 50-50. I don't really care beyond that surface level. So it was just fun to sort of go through it and look at the numbers. And I've been saving this for a day, and I really wanted to bring this because I thought it was a very interesting outcome. We mentioned that we don't get to play with each other very much
Yep.
because I play on Tuesdays and you play on Wednesdays. Somehow, you are my most played opponent.
Mm,
I
interesting.
have 44 games against you.
That is a lot of games of official Flesh and Blood, and that's not
Yes.
counting all the random games that we
Yeah.
just play. Yeah, when
I bet
okay.
you would have never guessed it because I know I
No,
would have never guessed it.
no, not at all. Who has a winning record? Is it close?
You're whooping my ass.
Uh-oh.
No, that's okay. I got 18 wins and you have 26 wins. So
I mean, that's closer.
yeah,
I think
okay.
a lot of it is because I played Oldham for a lot of that time. You're playing something weird like
Well,
young.
so
Yeah,
part of why I don't care about the stats so much is because of like I know that I play random stuff, not
yeah,
S tier stuff, untested stuff. So I don't take a lot of stock in wins or losses because I
yep,
could play something that's objectively bad and get good matchups and
yep,
have a winning record with something that's arguably a pile of trash. Just like I could just lose games because decks are bad.
yeah,
So that I don't put a lot of stock in any positive or negative win ratios because of
yep.
it. But it just was interesting because just finding out how many times I played with people it was very interesting. I just would have never guessed some of the
Yeah.
numbers.
So,
So
did you do this manually, or did you like use your computer smarts to scrape with some kind of automated script or something?
I don't know if you can. I'm not smart enough for that. So
Okay,
I did it by hand.
I
Clicked on my
see.
gem profile, went to the last page, 29 or whatever it was, clicked on
Yep.
the armory event, and wrote down the names of the people and who won, and then clicked on the next one and did
Okay.
it and kept
Old
doing it
school.
for
Yeah.
29 pages. And the other thing that I did too is I kind of tracked how many events, like major events that I played in as well, like
Yep.
skirmishes and PQs and RTNs, because I judge half of them locally prior
Yep.
to you coming here. So I didn't get to play in as many. But we talk about the heyday of, or the Wild West of the skirmish seasons 1 and 2. And I've played in 27 skirmishes because we were just doing a lot of online ones. And it was funny, you could tell by going through the history of when I played in multiple ones in a day because a lot of them had 2 game minimums.
Yep.
And so I'd just be in a skirmish and there'd only be 2 games. So you play 2 games to get your name into the draw for the CNC mat or the Razor Reflex mat.
Yep.
You drop and then you hop onto the next skirmish. Some people even played both skirmishes at the same time.
Yeah. That stuff is wild, man. That's
So
really cool.
again, it was just interesting to see that I played in 27 skirmishes because we're playing in like Hong Kong or Britain tournaments or
Yeah.
US, whatever. It didn't matter. And not as bad as some people like Arthur, who played in a shit ton, and a
Yeah.
few other people. So yeah, I just found it really interesting.
You also passed, I mean, just sort of related, you and I passed 1,000 XP together at Uprising pre-release or whatever that event was. But
Was it?
yeah,
Okay.
like you and Arthur and I on the same weekend all surpassed 1K.
Yep.
But now you're at 2,100. I just passed 2,000
2,000.
with
Congratulations.
ProQuest season. Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't know.
Okay. So I actually have something to say about this.
Yes.
Because it's called experience, I
Yep.
actually have a problem with it.
Mm.
If they called it win points or something, I wouldn't have a problem. My issue is that because it's called experience, and when you lose, you get nothing for it. I honestly think a loss should be worth 1 experience. You've
Mm.
probably gained something by playing the game, so you've gained some sort of definition of experience knowledge. You've learned something. And I think it would help incentivize people that are not necessarily good at the game off of the hop. Because
Yep.
when you go back and look at your history, you've played 30 games and you have 3 points because you won 1 official game,
Yep.
with 29 losses. Seeing 3 points to me is very like detrimental. Like it would feel bad. But if you saw that you had 32 points, that feels a lot better. And my interpretation of the system is that LSS wants to reward the competitive people that are playing the game.
Sure.
So two things. One, somebody that's not very good at the game still gets rewarded for getting their experience points. They feel good, I think. And two, butts and seats, man. Who cares what their experience is? Like it shouldn't matter if they're not good at the game and they can't get in on experience or whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters. After 1 or 2 rounds, the cream of the crop will be at the top anyways. So what does
Yeah.
it matter what skill level of people are attending the open events? So I think that the experience system should be adjusted personally or coined differently. I think it would help the new player base because as we've discussed a lot, this game is hard and it takes time before you start seeing results. I think if somebody like myself who likes to look at numbers and look at stats dwells on those numbers to be like, this game isn't for me, I'm going to go somewhere else.
That's a really interesting point, and I haven't really thought of it that way before. Because, yeah, I mean, people. I mean, I've gone 0-3 at armories. You have. I'm sure we
Mm-hmm.
all have. But you know, to go to an armory to lose 0-3, and you end the day with no experience at the end of the day, and your gem profile just shows 3 losses and nothing on your permanent record, quote
Yeah.
unquote, then yeah, that could be very demoralizing. And honestly, butts and seats, the people that are there to play socially, win or lose, those are the backbone of our community, right? So why not reward them with some experience? I completely
Yep.
get that. And as hopefully the competitive community can increasingly rely on elo, I mean, I know that's a whole can of worms, that it's far
Yeah.
from perfect, and my elo is still probably bottom 2 limited in Canada, so maybe we can give it a little bit. But
Yeah.
I hope that they can maybe look at doing something like that for XP, because I think it's a great point. And from an XP perspective, lived XP, I
Yeah.
learned a lot more from losing than I do from winning.
Totally.
Yeah.
I always talk about like playing somebody in Swiss and then you meet them in like the top cut.
Yeah.
That I feel like the person that lost in Swiss has the advantage over the person that won
Yeah.
because they get to adapt and change their deck. Whereas the person that won, they can't. They have to play the same way that they played and enact that game plan. So I feel like they're semi at a disadvantage. Obviously, deck tiers being set aside, you know. So I think there truly is experience in losing.
I think just from an overall data perspective, this is very interesting that all of our official games of Flesh and Blood are tracked through a central profile. So you
Mm-hmm.
do have the ability to go back and revisit and take a look at all of your old results, which is cool.
Yep.
Um, I've been doing a project where I'm taking all of my prize cards that I've won over the
Yep.
years, and I'm putting them into slabs, but I'm not getting them graded. I'm just putting the name of the card on the front, and on the back I'm putting in, this was the event, this was my win-loss record, this was the top cut, I won against this person, that I lost against this person, like, because that's what's important to me. And having that record to go through is very helpful.
Mm.
It's very, helps you remember, helps you
Yep.
relive that. But at the same time, I wonder, like, is it scary to have this much data? Like, are we losing some sense of mystery, or am I over romanticizing this aspect?
I think that comes up to the individual and how
Yeah,
they interpret the data. Like I said, I'm not diving too deep into it.
yeah,
I think you could go into a wormhole and get really deep into this and dwell on things that are even potentially out of your control, and it could be bad for some people.
hmm
I don't know if it's helpful data, like, because there's nothing behind it behind you either won or you lost.
Yep.
There's nothing else to it, no matchup. So you can't even, tell if it was a good matchup for you and you lost it,
Yeah.
and you can figure out why, or if it was just a bad matchup. So I don't think there's a lot to dive into with it, since it's just wins and losses. So I wouldn't put a lot of stock in it. And it was just something for me to for me to do. That's kind of why I did it. I honestly wouldn't recommend it. It was like 4 hours.
I
Um,
believe it.
I've played 1,024 recorded games in Gem, so
Yeah.
like, I don't know. And it was actually kind of neat to see some of the names. I did it also for that too, like to see some of the names of the people around the world that I played against. And on my list, there's some recognizable names for myself, and I was like, "Oh, cool! That's neat that I played against those people."
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Even just moving this away a little bit from Flesh and Blood, one of my friends, big board gamer, he obsessively tracks the results of all of our board games in this app called
Mm-hmm.
BG Stats, I think. So yeah, where we'd be playing a game, of terraforming Mars or whatever, and we'd wrap up the game, okay, tally up all the final scores. Then instantly, app comes out, recording all the data. Hey, I scored 154 points. I'm in first, and she got second, 128 points. Oh, that's the best score you have ever gotten in terraforming Mars. Congratulations. And Felix, you're in third. Your average score is 111, but you only scored 88 this game. Pretty rough game for you, hey? Like, why are you so far below average? I'm like,
Yeah.
at a certain point, I'm like, man, I'm being reduced to like a point scorer in a game
Yep.
with an average value and an expected value. I mean, I do worry about big data coming to
Yep.
places you wouldn't expect, right?
And like, it's funny because I have the same thing. I had an app for a while on one of my phones,
Yeah.
but affectionately in our group known as the Ledger. For
Mm-hmm.
the longest time, I had this big book that we would record the date we played the game, what game, who was playing, and their points. And again, context matters, and there's very little context to the score that you're given. If I could see it maybe being a fun thing if like you're in a really competitive group and you employ certain strategies all of the time and your scores become consistent.
Yep.
But when you play a game one time and then you don't play it again for a year, does it really matter? Like, you're maybe a better board gamer in the future, or you understand more the game mechanics.
Yep.
So maybe your score is higher. The other thing too is a lot of games points don't scale with players, or they do scale with players. Like you can have
Depends on
more
the
points
game,
in
yeah.
you can have more
Yeah.
points in a 3-player game than you do when you play it in 4-player. So then you're not comparing apples to apples anymore.
Yeah.
And then again, the other thing too is if you do play a board game multiple times, you could have 55 points here, and you could have 111 points here. Well, maybe you just tried something that was totally off whim in that game, and it ruins your stats. But you were trying something different. So
Yeah.
again, there's no deeper meaning to it other than it was just a bad strategy, right? So I
Yeah.
don't think people should read a lot into it if they do like to look at the numbers, unless like you can make it consistent for the purpose, I guess. But it is
Yeah.
fun though. Like,
It I definitely see the appeal, and sometimes when I'm mountain biking, there's different apps that you can use to put on your phone and track the GPS. It'll say, hey, congratulations, you did this trail in the best time you've ever had, right?
right.
So there's like a healthy way to engage with that, and of course
Mm-hmm.
there's a really unhealthy way to do that too, where you're just foregoing your own safety and like like all this different
Yeah.
stuff. Like it's just interesting because Flesh and Blood has had this from the very beginning. I listened to different card game people from different games, and they're saying, yeah, I think I played that person in 2011, but I forget how it went, or
Yeah.
that's been lost to time. For Flesh and Blood, for the foreseeable future, unless we start seeing tournaments run outside of Gem, because even like non-LSS tournaments, I believe, typically use gem for matchmaking and all of
Okay.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, we're just always going to have those records for good or ill. Seems all good right now, but who
You
knows in the
know,
future?
and when you're looking at it on the page, they don't give you like a win-loss record. They just tell how many wins you have.
Yeah.
So I think that's good, because if
Hmm.
you saw that you had 100 wins and you saw you had 500 losses, again, feels bad. But if you just see you have 100 wins, you're like, cool, I have 100 wins, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they're doing it right by not giving also too much data as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally get that. You know, I remember when Overwatch came out and they decided instead of a kill death, it would just be kills.
Yeah.
And everyone really got upset. Or I shouldn't say everyone.
Sure.
Some people got upset that we're being too careberry, and
Yeah. It's different.
yeah, it's but I don't mind it. It
Yeah. Well,
helps it
it
helps
saves
distract
toxicity,
me.
right?
Yeah. Helps
Yeah.
distract me from my 2 kills and 10 death record anytime I play a
Yeah.
shooter game. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this was fun to chat about all these different things.
Yeah.
Anything else on your mind?
Yeah. I'd just like to let our listeners know that we'll be opening up our Patreon soon, and
Please no.
one of the tiers is that Felix will slab a card for you in his grading company.
We have never discussed this ever before.
No, I'm just joking. I think the slab thing is really cool, though. I really like that idea, and it's really awesome way to like remember those cards and where they came from.
Yeah, and I think we, even in our first or second episode, we're talking about what makes different collections or different keepsakes important to us. And for me, it's not the value of the card. So it
Mhm.
could be the Jubil from RTN, or could be the cold foil Levia from I think it was the first RTN season. Any one of those. It doesn't matter what the dollar value is, or the PCG grade or the PSA grade. The way that I do it, and anyone can do this. You can buy PSA type slabs online. So I found a place that sells them for I think $5 each, and you can just slab your own card, and you can just use your printer at home to just put on the front, the name of the card or whatever you want. And on the back, just say, this is the date, this is my result, this is who I played. And it's just a little keepsake for you. So when you look at your card, you can say, hey, I won that at this event, and this is how the Swiss went, this is who I won against, this is who I lost to. Yeah, that just really enhances at least my appreciation for each one.
People would also have to have printers to do it. I thought we discovered that people don't have printers.
It really shocked me that a lot of younger people apparently don't have printers. It's I thought it was a household appliance, just like your refrigerator, your oven, and your printer.
No,
We
you're an old man, Felix. You're an old man.
apparently.
You should
Any
put a, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say anything else, or
Oh, I was just gonna say you should put a picture of your little slab up in the corner of the thumbnail when you do it.
sounds good. Sounds good.
No, I'm good. I got nothing else.
All right. It was great chatting with you as always,
As
Shay.
always.
If you want to catch us on social media, which you should use in moderation, you should look at us on YouTube, IP2 Podcast, Twitter, IP2 Podcast, Blue Sky, IP2 Podcast. Take care. Sometimes my professional life, I run into situations similar to, you ever watch Parks and Recreation?
No, I
No,
haven't. I'm
you
sorry.
haven't watched anything. Every time I ask, have you watched anything? Like, the answer is no.
I,
Okay.
I knew I was going to disappoint you.